Hi there. Hello. Welcome back to the Pitch Grid. In today's episode, we will be recapping all the news and games from the last week of EFL and NFL action. EFL was rather limited due to the international break, but we did have some really interesting games going on that happened, including a couple of crazy draws. And in the NFL, week 6 was yeah, it was a bunch of chaos, but also a lot of chalk as well. So let's get into it. Let's start pitch side as we head to the EFL League Two. We covered this game in the last episode. Notts County and Chesterfield was the highlight of the League Two action. It was a rather interesting game. Um, Chesterfield had a very early hot start as Patrick Madden got a sixth-minute goal, and then Alessandro Jada, one of Notts County's top scorers, got one not 8 minutes later in the 14th minute to knot it up at one. And then with it kind of went to a stalemate. No one really taking over the game much until the 74th minute when Will Grigg, Chesterfield's one of Chesterfield's main men, he scored in the 74th minute to make it 2-1 Chesterfield. And then it looked like Chesterfield was going to win, but in the last minute of stoppage time, Notts County got the equalizer from another one of their top scorers, David McGodrick. And that knotted up at 2-2. And yeah, I mean, pretty sure from last time when I said it was going to be an even match just because of how both have a very similar goal differential. Um, yeah, it was very even. The stats kind of show it, with Notts County having 55.9% of possession. Chesterfield had 44.1% of the possession. Um, both had 6 shots on target. Both had very similar shot attempts. Chesterfield had 13 to Notts County's 15. Both had 3 yellow cards. Both had 4 saves apiece. Notts County did have more of the set piece opportunities, though, with 9 corner kicks to Chesterfield's 5. So it was a rather even match. You can't say not. There was much that separated the two, and really kind of just keeps the little process going of how Chesterfield were hoping to get a win. They hadn't won a lot in their last 5. I believe it was 1 or 2 of their last 5 matches they had won the game in. Meanwhile, Notts County drops points in their third straight game, and they keep themselves within shot of the top of the table. But in the action that happened also this week, Port Vale got the win over one of the worst teams in the league in MK Dons. A 1-0 win put Port Vale on top of the table at 21 points. So they are now 2 points clear of Notts County. Um, yeah, it's a very tight top of the table in the league too. But yeah, this was a good game. Not much in terms of separating the two teams, but you could tell both wanted this game. It just couldn't break for either one. Chesterfield thought they were going to get a huge boost because this would have put them at 17 points, which would have put them near top 10 of the table. So yeah, this kind of unfortunate for both teams, but that's just sometimes football. And in League One, we had a shootout and a very surprising affair that was Crawley versus Shrewsbury. Shrewsbury and Crawley both near the bottom of the table, with only 1 point separating them. And well, it was only 1 point separate. It is now 1 point separating them. Uh, Crawley and Shrewsbury both near the bottom, like I said, and it ended up a very crazy game. Crawley gave up the first goal on a penalty. John Barquise got the goaling started at 26th minute with a clean shot at the bottom of the net. Will Swan then equalized for Crawley in the 33rd minute um, with his own goal. And then Crawley took the lead actually in the 62nd minute on off of Junior Quitrana's goal. I think that's how you spell his name. And much apologies to Junior. That's a very interesting name. And then Shrewsbury came back and scored two in the span of 4 minutes uh, after a red card, actually, in the 56th minute from Crawley. Josh Flint was sent off. Um, and then, of course, Crawley proceeded to score the goal in the 62nd. So it looked like the 10 men was actually kind of doing an FM where they 10 men is overpowered at times in FM. But then Aristola Noila, Nisayala, or however you want to say that, Ciala, I think it is, in the 72nd minute scored a goal to knock the game back up. And then John Marquise got another penalty attempt, which he slotted home to put Shrewsbury in front 3-2. And then after that, yeah, Shrewsbury got a fourth goal in the 86th minute. Uh, Crawley tried to get back into this game, they really did, but Shrewsbury got a fifth in the 92nd before Crawley got their consolation goal in the 95th. It ends 5-3. Crawley dominated somewhat the possession. It wasn't like a huge slice of the possession, 56.3% to 43.7. Crawley did have the fewer shots on target as well as fewer shots on goal. Shrewsbury had 18 to Crawley's 15. On target shots were 6-5 in favor of Shrewsbury. Uh, 4 yellow cards for Shrewsbury to Crawley's 3. And Shrewsbury did have more of the set pieces, 6-4. And also, they actually had to make more saves. So this easily could have been a draw if Crawley had had better shots on target. So you would think based on the saves. But this shows, it's a bomb the table match, but it really was a quality game. Lots of twists and turns it looks like, and yeah, this was a very surprising result in terms of how crazy the game is, and it just shows how the EFL can be such a wild ride. Um, and then we'll finally go to the other match that actually happened in League One, because there were only two that happened this week. Rotherham and Peterborough, both teams kind of hanging mid-table. Um, yeah, they kind of showed why in a way. It and it started off hot because Peterborough got Donnelly got Peterborough on the board at the 17th minute, and then 2 minutes later, Sam Nomby from Rotherham equalized. And then Rotherham did take the lead in the 23rd to make it 2-1. But then and it looked like also and then it kind of just fizzled out. And then it kind of looked like they were going to have it sealed when Johnson Clark Harris scored in the 46th minute, um, the first minute stoppage time in the first half, to give Rotherham a 3-1 lead. But Peterborough came back. They got an own goal from Joseph Rafferty in the 50th minute, and then 3 minutes later, they tied the game up at the 53rd minute off of Emmanuel Fernandez. And really, no one else could really do much. Peterborough did actually have a lot of the possession. They dominated it, quite frankly, 76.2% to 23.8% for Rotherham. So Peterborough definitely showed their quality in terms of keeping the ball. They had more shots in total, 14-11. They did have barely more shots on target, 7-6. But and also actually they had more yellow cards, 3-1. But the key here to me is the set pieces. Corner kicks, Peterborough had 8 of them, and that's huge considering um, you know they were able to equalize and they went down 3-1. And kudos to the Peterborough for having the wherewithal to be able to get back up after halftime and just be able to equalize. But then no one else could, and then they just couldn't break that dam to get the lead, or Rotherham couldn't either. And both of these teams probably needed the points. It's again very early doors in the season, but they started out at 14 and 13 points. A win gets them top six for Peterborough. Actually, if they had won this game, they would have been 17 points. I think they would have been, yeah, they would have been sixth in the table, actually, which is massive. Um, Rotherham would have been at 16, so they've been right outside the top six because they don't have the best. Neither of them have the best goal differential. They both have the same goal differential, actually, at -2. So yeah, this was a game that kind of showed how close these two teams are. Um, and it shows there wasn't much to separate them, but at the same time, like how close the margins can be in terms of being in mid-table to top six in any of the three EFL leagues, which is absolutely insane. Like it's very similar to the championship where you have teams that are like only 2 points off and they're only in like 10th place. So yeah, good games in the EFL. Again, limited action due to international duty. But yeah, so let's head grid side. NFL had their week 6 action, and it was an interesting slate of games to some extent. To some other extent, there were some games that you looked at that were kind of meh. We started off Thursday night, and this was a game where it looked like the Niners were just going to absolutely run away with this thing and not let the Seahawks have anything. They went up 16-0 by the time it was 2:33 left in the half. A lot of field goals actually, which is kind of you know it shows the 49ers couldn't finish exactly in the first half. Seahawks defended the red zone well. Um, and then Seahawks got a field goal right at the end of the half to make it 16-3. You're like, okay, consolation field goal. And then the Niners took the ball, drove it down, got a George Kittle touchdown from 10 yards out. And so you're like, okay, Seahawks have finally broken it. It's 23-3 at this point. You're like, okay, game's pretty much over. But then the Seahawks came back on a really 14 points uh, swing, and it got them within 6, 23-6, 17. You're like, okay, could the Seahawks do something with this? No, because the Niners just kept responding really with their own counter punches. Uh, Niners went up 29-17 with 6:20 left in the fourth after both teams kind of just let the game, stew for a bit in the 23-17 score. It was rather even at that point until finally the Niners just broke the Seahawks' resistance. And then the Seahawks came back, made a 5-point lead with a minute 44 left. You're like, okay, quick stop. Seahawks could get the ball back. Maybe try to go tie the game. Take the lead. Because that's the only option they could have had, what am I saying? But Kyle Juszczyk, he took the ball into the end zone to make it 36-24 with 1 minute 17 left. And he handed it to his wife in the stands. And yeah, that's how the game ended. 36-24. Um, a very good win for the Niners. Puts them right back on track at 3-3. Both are 3-3, so now the Seahawks have lost 3 straight after being 3-0 to start the year. Brock Purdy went 18 for 28, 256 yards, 3 touchdowns. It was not Gino's best night, in part because Kenneth Walker had only 14 carries for 32 yards because they were so far behind. They just had to pass a lot. And, Gino had 52 attempts, 30 for 52, 312 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks. That's probably, if you want to look at something right there, like I said, the Seahawks couldn't get Kenneth Walker going on only 14 carries because they just got so far behind because the Niners took advantage of the weaknesses of the O line and the D line for Seattle. And it shows, actually, um, do want to shout out the that Trent that Mason, the Niners backup running back who is the Jordan Mason, came into this um, game the top back for the Niners. He did injure his shoulder. I have to make sure, but I don't remember. I don't think he's on IR or anything yet. Um, and that's huge for him. but his backup did not do too bad. Got 99 yards of off of the only 10 carries, 99 yards. So shout out Garendo, the third string running back for the Niners, Isaac Garendo. He is, yeah, wow. This was a pretty good game for him. Showed out, and yeah, so Jordan Mason got hurt. It's another huge injury for the Niners, who are now down to their third string running back. Um, and you gotta hope that Mason is okay. Obviously, you don't want him hurt. Um, I don't think, yeah, there hasn't been any huge major updates on Mason yet, so we'll see what he's like. Debo went off in this game. 3 catches, 102 yards, and a touchdown. Like I said, Kittle had a touchdown. He had 2 touchdowns actually in this game. The one to put them up 29-17 and the one to make it 23-3. So he had 2 touchdowns in this game as well. Kittle, of course, being his usual self, you know. And also, you want to look at a stat that really killed the Seahawks. They had 3 turnovers, the Niners none. Usually, if you lose the turnover battle, you're going to lose a game. And it showed. So, yeah, this is kind of a game you kind of expected in the division. Close game at some points, but Niners eventually showed they had the better quality in the end. All right, let's head to the London game. Bears Jaguars, kind of a team in the Bears that was looking for an identity. Jaguars just looking for anything at all to look at and be positive about. This game did not show anything positive about the Jaguars. It showed a lot of good things for the Bears. It wasn't always pretty for the Bears, but it definitely it got a lot better once they started picking up the pace. Uh, Jags actually took the lead into the second quarter. They had a 3-0 lead. Neither offense could really get going to start the game. And then once Cole Kmet at 11:07 left, with 11:07 left in the second quarter, once he got a 31-yard pass, funny enough story, he got the touchdown pass from Caleb Williams. And then he became, because there was no long snapper for the Bears this game, Cole Kmet, the tight end, is the backup long snapper. So as soon as he got the touchdown, he had to go right back out there on extra point duty and be the long snapper. And the Bears just ran after that. It ran and hit with this game. They made it 14-3 at the half, then 21-3 in the third quarter before the Jaguars scored a touchdown in this game. It was a 21-yard pass from Trevor. Keenan Allen actually made a touchdown this game, which is huge for him. Keenan Allen actually had 2 because right after Jags went down and scored, uh, it kind of came back to the Bears getting a 3-yard touchdown pass to Keenan Allen with only 4 seconds gone into the fourth quarter. And then DeAndre Swift ran it in for 1 yard, not a little over 2 minutes later to make it 35-10. Jags got a consolation touchdown with only 6:58 to go. And after that, the Bears just kind of clock managed the game. And yeah, a lot of good things for the Bears. Let's just say that the defense was amazing. They did have 1 turnover in this game, kind of a weird deflection, I think it was. Yeah, it was a weird deflected pass that got Caleb got picked on. And then, yeah, other than that, the Jags really didn't have much. And to speak of, they had 2 turnovers. Again, lose the turnover battle, usually lose the game. Bears had 373 total yards of offense, 25 total first downs. They barely actually they barely got the edge of time of possession. 30 minutes 40 seconds to Jags, 29 minutes 20 seconds. So both had a lot of the ball. Jags just could not do anything with it. It shows the Jags have no offense to speak of. And Caleb Williams had this was probably his best game of the year. 4 touchdowns, 226 yards, 23 for 29, so very efficient for the most part. Um, Trevor was okay. He was 23-35, 234 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Um, yeah, this is probably the most complete game the Bears have ever played this season. Um, Offense, defense, special teams all showed up. And yeah, if this is what the Bears can be like, they could be a problem in the NFC. They really could. I would say they're going to win the division or anything because right now the Vikings and the Lions are absolutely cooking at the top right now, but and also the Packers are cooking too. But this could be a very interesting division in the NFC North, where we might see three playoff teams actually come out of this division. I don't think any of us would have said that at the beginning of the year, especially considering how much was unknown about the Bears. Again, early season, so we won't know until about Thanksgiving probably how good the Bears are actually going to be. But this is some encouraging signs that they keep improving every week and getting better on both sides of the ball. So, good win for the Bears. Jags have a ton of questions on both sides of the ball. Of course, they are also very seriously hurt on both sides of the ball, so that didn't help either. But yeah, this was a game they needed to win, and they dropped to 1-5, and that's probably going to hurt them and maybe eliminate them for playoff contention sooner rather than later. Also, Doug Peterson's seat is burning hot. Shad Khan, the owner of the Jags, did come out earlier before the game last week and say that he has full confidence in Doug Peterson. How much confidence that's going to be, who knows? If he keeps Doug Peterson around another year, I'd be shocked. But also, I wouldn't be because it's the Jaguars. So they have a game in London again next week against the Patriots. That should be interesting in terms of the pecking order and the draft pick situation. Tank Bowl, early Tank Bowl, actually. Uh, so that should be a kind of interesting game if you're into that kind of stuff. Going on to the Texans Patriots. This was a game I didn't think was close. It wasn't close. Houston scored 41 points on the Patriots. C.J. Stroud threw for 3 touchdowns in this game. Um, at one point, it looked like, oh, Houston's gonna, have a game when Patriots scored with 11 seconds left in the half to make it 14-7. Drake May threw a beauty of a touchdown pass to uh, Keyshawn Butte, I should say, to make it 14-7. And then after that, the Houston just steamrolled the rest of the way. They made it 27-7 more. The Patriots scored again, and then just piled on some more. Patriots showed a little fight, keep making a 20-point lead, but they couldn't do anything because Houston had such a huge lead. Um, C.J. Stroud, like I said, threw 3 touchdowns. He did have a pick in this game, um, but overall it was a pretty good day for him. Joe Mixon had a good day as well. 13 carries, 102 yards, and a touchdown. And the league receiver, of course, with Nico Collins out, Stephon Diggs, 6 receptions, 77 yards, and a touchdown, showing why he was signed to help bring some extra firepower to the Texans receiving room. Meanwhile, for the Patriots, this was Drake May's first professional start. He wasn't awful, actually. Um, Stat wise, he was 20 of 33, 243 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. That's not bad for a rookie's first start. Uh, yeah, it wasn't in the best circumstances. It was at home, but against a very good Texans team. And with no O line, you knew this was not going to be a good game for him. But he faced the pressure and played somewhat decently in spite of it. And that's some good signs for the Patriots. Drake May actually was also the leading rusher with 5 carries for 38 yards for the Patriots because they had no run game. And if you're not gonna have a run game in the Patriots system, you're not gonna have a good day offensively. So Jamario Douglas was also 6 receptions, 92 yards, and a touchdown. So for the Patriots. So yeah, they had 4 turnovers, which also deadly in terms of the turnover margin. Um, yeah, this was a bad game overall, but Drake May did kind of show a beacon of hope in terms of what the future of the quarterback position may be. If he keeps this up, solid performances even in losses, that's good stuff. Good signs that he might be something to keep an eye on in the future. Yeah. Otherwise, this was a pretty expected result. Um, moving on, we go from a pretty expected result to another expected result, but a lot closer than we would have thought. The Eagles hosted the Browns, and they only won 20-16. Uh, Fun fact: the Browns did not have a single offensive touchdown in this game. The only touchdown of this game was a blocked field goal for the Browns. Uh they blocked the kick by Jake Moody at the end of the half and tied it up on that kick six to make it 10-10 with 14 seconds left in the half. And yeah, the Eagles, they went out to a 13-10 lead. Browns tied it up again with another field goal. Devonta Smith got the touchdown with 7:54 to go, and the Browns, even though they got a field goal with 3:54 left, they just could not stop. AJ Brown made a clutch catch to seal the game for the Eagles. Um, yeah, this was ugly for the Eagles. Um, yeah, this is also ugly for the Browns. Let's not get it twisted. Also, another fun stat: the Browns are 0-25 on third down this year. 0-25. That is horrendous, and another reason why the Browns are so bad. Deshaun Watson, 16 of 23 for 168 yards. Also, it is to be mentioned that Jerome Ford was knocked out with, I think, a shoulder injury, so that didn't help matters offensively for them either. Jalen Hurts for the Eagles had a respectable game, 16 for 25, 264 yards, two touchdowns. Saquon only had 16 carries for 47 yards. And A.J. Brown, his first game back, 6 receptions, 116 yards, and a touchdown, showing why he is an absolute beast. No turnovers either way in this game, actually. Uh, Eagles did have over 100 yards more total offense, 372 to 244, and more first downs at 19 to 14. Browns actually won the time of possession battle at 31-27 to 28-33. Um, if you're the Eagles, you're not supposed to be only winning by four against the one of the worst teams in the league in Cleveland. Uh, yeah, this was a weird game, bad game for both teams. Nick Sirianni jousting with his own fans in Philly. He later did apologize for that, but it's still not a good look for him. His seat is on fire at this point. I don't think there's any question about that. They won, but it did not look pretty. Um, and the culture just this Eagles team does not look like the Eagles teams of 2 years ago or even last year, and that's something I never thought I would have said this coming into the season. The Browns, there's a lot of questions. They have already started fielding trade calls as the trade deadline is starting to heat up in terms of trade rumors, all that. Uh, Yeah, Deshaun Watson, there's a lot of talk around why he can't be benched. Kevin Stefanski, the Browns head coach, did say he has full confidence in Watson. How much of that is money talking because, they can't bench him while they're paying him, I think, over 75 million a year almost, which is insane to think about. You're paying a guy who's this bad at quarterback 75 million almost a year. I think it would be a 75 million dead cap hit actually. I think it's more 45 million a year in terms of raw salary, but if you cut it, it'd be a 75 million dollar a year cap hit. So in terms of the money, you can understand why. Some people are calling that Browns just cut Watson. It'd probably be the best idea football wise, but financially, the Browns know they've messed up big time. They have to. Otherwise, it's just another Browns moment. And yeah, Cleveland is in the throes of hell at this point. 1-5. Eagles are, they're surviving, but how good they can actually be, even if this early into the season, it looks doubtful they could be a great contending team like we thought they might be. In a somewhat wide open division, actually, which we'll get to later. Going from two awful games, we'll head to the Ravens Commanders, which was a great game. Both teams absolutely duked it out. Um, it just you feel bad for Washington because like this was a game they had a chance to actually be in, but the Ravens just took firm control of this in the third quarter. It went back and forth for most of this game. It was 3-3 at the end of the first. The Ravens took the lead. Commanders took it and tied it, and then the Ravens took the lead into the half. Washington did come back and make it a 17-13 game with 12:45 to go in the third. But then the Ravens just took over, scored 10 straight, excuse me, to make it 27-13. And that's when you knew Washington just couldn't keep up. This was a good game still, despite that. Jaden Daniels had a great game, 24 of 35, 269 yards, 2 touchdowns. Lamar didn't have a bad game himself, 20 for 26, 323 yards, and a touchdown with one pick. That's, the old pick being the only blemish on his day overall. Derrick Henry had himself a great game. Exposed the Commanders' defense for not being a good run defense. 24 carries, 132 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Zay Flowers had himself a game, just not in the scoreboard section of this game. 9 receptions, 132 yards. So yeah, this was a game, like I said, the Ravens took control of. They did have the only turnover of the game, so it's a very rare turnover battle situation where usually you lose. You're not usually going to win the game, but they lost the turnover battle. Still had over 180 yards more offense than the Commanders. Um, I think where you could see they got let down was in the run game, as Jay Daniels was the leading rusher for Washington, 6 carries for 22 yards. Uh, that's not going to help. It also doesn't help when Zach Ertz is your leading receiver for receptions, 68 yards. So the Ravens defense clamped up when they needed to. It was only a 7-point game. 30-23 was the final. But the Ravens did control time of possession as well. And yeah, it's just a game where you can see the Ravens are just a better team. They're more seasoned. They were ready for this game. Washington was just young and unproven. And they showed they could go toe to toe, but it wasn't enough for them to, you know, give the Ravens too much problems. They will. This Washington offense could be something special if they can build on it. You could tell Dan Quinn definitely has something going here in Washington. If he could keep it up, they could actually be a contender for a playoff spot. Maybe in the division, because they're 4-2 right now. We went over the Eagles, who are also 4-2. And those are the best teams in the division right now, I believe. Them and the Eagles are the best teams in the division right now. Washington still has the lead at 4-2. We're gonna get to the other teams soon. But first, let's get to what was a pretty good game for most of it. The Saints Bucks. This was in New Orleans. This was a game that started really weirdly. The Bucks jumped out to a 17-0 lead by the end of the first quarter. This was looking like it might be a blowout for the Bucks, but then the Saints came back. The Saints came back and scored 20 unanswered to take a 20-17 lead, all within the span of about 11 minutes to just take a 20-17 lead and just shock the Bucks. But then the Bucks responded. They got a touchdown from Sean Tucker to Baker Mayfield. Actually, that was a that was a play. Um, he was the Sean Tucker, by the way, is the Buccaneers running back. Actually, he was their leading rusher today in the game. But then Alvin Kamara, with 2:47 left at the half, gave the Saints the lead at 27-24. And it was the lead they had for a long stretch in the third until about 4:25 left. Chris Godwin got a pass from Baker Mayfield, and then the Bucks just poured it on in the fourth, where they absolutely scored 20 unanswered points, down the Saints into their own misery. Chris Olave is probably going to be out for Thursday night with a concussion. Rashid Shaheed had, I think, a hamstring injury. He's going to be out for this game as well. The Thursday night game as well against the Broncos. So this is not good game overall end result for the Saints. They went to 2-4. They have now lost 4 straight after going 2-0. Baker Mayfield had a weird performance, 4 touchdowns, but 3 picks. Um, yeah, it wasn't great, but it was also pretty good still. 325 yards off of 24 for 36 passing. Like I said, Sean Tucker, the rookie right back out of Syracuse, I believe it is, he had 14 carries, 136 yards, and a touchdown. Alvin Kamara for the Saints only had 13 carries for 40 yards and a touchdown. And Chris Godwin was the lead receiver for the Bucks. 11 receptions, 126 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had himself a game, uh, showing us that he is still one of the top number 2 receivers in the league. Fabian Moreau was the leading receiver for the Saints. 2 receptions for 54 yards. So that shows a lot of kind of where the problems are in terms of the Saints offense. Yeah, the Bucks had a franchise record, by the way, in this game for most total yards of offense at 594. Absolutely incredible stuff. Shootout of epic proportions until it wasn't. The fourth, where the Bucks just asserted their dominance. The Bucks had 31 first downs to 19 for the Saints. Both teams had 3 turnovers. Like I said, Baker was accountable for all 3 of those with picks. I didn't get to see fully what this game was. I don't know how bad those picks were, but still, the Bucks come out of this with a huge win. Stop what would have been a huge losing streak if they had lost again. To keep themselves near the top of the division um, at 4-2. And yeah, it was a good game until it wasn't. It just shows the Bucks are a lot better at this point, and the Saints just have a lot of injuries and a lot of questions coming out of this game in terms of how bad is the defense really, how dependent is this offense really on Derek Carr, because Spencer Rattler made his first start of the year. He wasn't bad. He had a touchdown, 2 picks. It wasn't great either, to be fair. He had 243 yards total passing off of 22 for 40. So, yeah, it wasn't great for the Saints on either side of the ball, but it shows they have some fight. It showed they also have a ton of questions that need to be answered quickly, or the season could go way out of hand very fast. Cardinals, Packers, not much to talk about in this game as well. This was a game that it looked like uh, Packers would run away with. They were up 24-0 by the mid first quarter, mid first half, I should say. Second quarter, 4:32 to go. They went up 24-0. Cardinals went on to score 13 straight, and then after that, the Packers just asserted their dominance. Um, Jordan Love had a great game, 23 for 32, 258 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a pick. That's all that really needs to be said, I think, right there. These stats prove that the Cardinals had 3 turnovers to only 1 for the Packers. The Packers had 437 yards of total offense to Arizona's 303. It shows the Cardinals have a lot to work on. They're a young, scrappy team. Marvin Harrison also was out with a concussion in this game, so that didn't help their chances any. But shows, they can beat the scrappy teams like the Niners. They're scrappy enough to beat teams like the Niners who are injured and not as good as they have been in years past. But also, they can't beat teams that are also up and coming like the Packers, who are pretty good overall on both sides of the ball. Packers have a very opportunistic defense, while the Cardinals just have nothing going in terms of their defense. So yeah, this is a pretty straightforward Packers beatdown of the Cardinals, and shows the Cardinals have still some growth to do, and Packers showed that they are still one of the top teams in the NFC. A game that was interesting in terms of overall um, entertainment, and also kind of puts the division race into perspective, was the Colts Titans game. Colts barely won this game. Joe Flacco had a pretty good game overall. He did have the one blemish to his name for the interception, but he was 22 of 38, 189 yards, 2 touchdowns. He got the job done when he needed to. Tony Pollard had a decent game for the Titans. 17 carries for 93 yards and a touchdown. That actually gave them the 17-13 lead over the Colts in the third quarter. the only score of the third quarter, 17-10, I should say. It was a 17-10 lead with 6:19 to go, but then the Colts just came back and won it with 7:27 left in the fourth. Titans just couldn't do anything. The Colts couldn't do either, but it was enough, and it was a very typical AFC South game. 2017, the Colts go to 3-3 and are now second place in the division. Meanwhile, the Titans, coming off the bye week, look about as we would expect against a better team. Just meh. They're 1-4 now. The season is slowly spiraling away. And yeah, this was a game that the Titans needed to win, and they couldn't. Um, just because they needed the division race to go their way somewhat, and it didn't. Joe Flacco has been pretty good in Anthony Richardson's place. By the way, it looks like Anthony Richardson will be playing next week, barring any setbacks. So Colts are getting their huge young quarterback back, who has a lot of potential, and that could be huge for the Colts in terms of their playoff aspirations and maybe their division aspirations, depending on how things go in terms of the Texans. Chargers Broncos. This was a pretty straightforward also game. The Chargers just took a massive 23 to nothing lead into the fourth quarter, and the Broncos came back, made a game of it in the fourth, 23 to 16, but they just didn't have enough. They scored a field goal with 59 seconds. They couldn't get the onside kick, and the Chargers won their first game in Denver in, I think, 3 years, which is a long time. But a gritty win for the Chargers. Weird thing that happened was Jim Harbaugh had a what was called an aortical flutter. He said it was after the game, I believe, and he left the game briefly, but came back on the sidelines. And yeah, the Chargers dominated this game after the Broncos had been on a hot streak of late, um, winning games in pretty dominant fashion for the most part. And well, except for that Jets game. That Jets game was just ugly. But yeah, this was a game the Chargers needed to win to kind of show who they are in the division, and to keep pace with the Chiefs. Yeah, this is a game the Broncos wanted to win, obviously, to keep themselves alive as well. But it shows in the end that Bo Nix, though he has been good lately, is still mortal. He did have the one interception. The Broncos had two turnovers to the Chargers none, so that's huge. Chargers barely had more offensive yards than the Broncos, 350 to 316, but that was enough because um, they got a huge game from Justin Herbert coming back off of the bye, 21 to 34, 237 yards and a touchdown. J.K. Dobbins also had a pretty solid game, 25 carries, 96 yards and a touchdown. It is worth noting also that Patrick Surtain also was out of this game with a concussion. That did not help the Broncos' chances of winning this game, as he is the leader of that defense. And yeah, this also the Chargers pretty much dominate time of possession, 37 minutes 23 seconds to 22 minutes 37 seconds. So this was a game that the Chargers just did a typical Jim Harbaugh game. They ran the clock out, they dominated possession. The run game got going, and they used play action off of it, and they won the game. They took the early lead and just ran ahead from the Broncos. So overall, kind of just shows early season where these two teams are in terms of maybe this could be huge in determining maybe a playoff spot actually, or even a division in the division race. So a huge win for the Chargers. Broncos have a quick turnaround to Thursday night against the Saints. Steelers Raiders was a game where the Steelers pretty much just dominated this game after a ugly start. Um, they went down 7-3 in the first quarter to the Raiders, and then after that, the Steelers just slowly chipped away and never looked back. Eventually scoring, I believe it was, yeah, they scored after the touchdown. They scored 26 unanswered points to make a 29-7 lead. The Raiders got a consolation touchdown in the fourth quarter. but that was not going to be even close to enough as the Raiders lost 32-13 in Vegas to the Steelers, who keep their heads atop the division for now. This was Najee Harris's first 100-yard rushing game this year. He had 14 carries, 160 yards, and a touchdown. Um, Justin Fields had a decent game. He went 14 for 24, 145 yards, had no touchdowns. Gardner Minshew was benched this week actually for Aiden O'Connell. He did not show, he didn't show anything impressive to, take the starting role away from Gardner Minshew for the Raiders. This was actually pretty even in terms of offensive yards output. The Raiders had 3 turnovers, and that killed them pretty much. The Steelers, have a really good defense, and that showed. Um, yeah, the offense is still a work in progress, but it helps when when the Steelers are a run first team and they can get that going. They can score points. It's just a matter of if they can get the run game going. And it took a while, but it paid off. Justin Fields did have a rushing touchdown, 2 rushing touchdowns actually in this game. So he did have a passing one, but he did have 2 rushing touchdowns. And that's kind of what this offense is. It's a ground and pound running offense. Najee and Justin Fields, and yeah, it does look like actually the Russell Wilson is going to probably maybe start for the next game. I believe their next game is against the Jets, which is kind of interesting. Um, so that's going to be huge for them. But they do keep their noses, I believe, top of the division. The Ravens, who also, like we said earlier, oh, actually, no. Ravens actually get the lead in the division because they have to win over the Bengals. So now the Ravens are atop the division, as we all expected. But this is going to be interesting in terms of interesting top of the division race, which could be coming down to the wire in terms of uh, the record. For now, it is early doors. Both are 4-2. We'll have to see going forward where this ends up. Um, Lions Cowboys was a disaster on all levels for the Cowboys. Um, there's not much to talk about. The Lions just came out absolutely stifled the Cowboys on both sides of the ball. Um, the line to show you how bad it was, they kept trying to score touchdowns off of offensive linemen. They couldn't because penalties and whatnot, but they tried their hardest. They tried to make Dan Skipper score a touchdown. He didn't. They just wanted the holy wrath of God to just come down on these Cowboys after what happened last year when the Lions lost a pivotal game to the Cowboys in Dallas last year. And this was a pretty good game for the Lions overall. They had a lot of yards, 492 total yards of offense. They forced 5 turnovers. They had 27 first downs. Jared Goff was an efficient 18 30 of 25 for 315 yards, 3 touchdowns. Dak uh, had 17 of 33, 178 yards, and 2 picks. David Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs both had great days. David Montgomery was the leading rusher, 12 carries, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Jameson Williams was the leading receiver for the Lions. 3 receptions, 76 yards, and a touchdown. Only bad thing that came out of this game, and it sucks. Aiden Hutchinson broke his tibia in this game. And he's the star man for these Lions, especially on defense. He's a captain, I believe. He is their best pass rusher. Uh, Michigan man through and through. Um, I absolutely hate to see. He is out for the season because he had a rod planted in his leg during surgery, so that puts him out for the rest of the year, including the playoffs. It will be interesting to see what the Lions' pass rush looks like now without Hutch, because he is such a key part of that pass rush. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be bad, but I do want to see what it's like without him now. They do have a good interior defensive line with DJ Reader. Um, and I think Marcus Davenport, I think, is on that line. I could be wrong. Um, but yeah, this was an overall domination of the Cowboys by the Lions, and it just sucks that they lost touch. even in a win. So yeah, that was a disaster of a game. And then a game that was kind of also a interesting game that almost was a disaster, but wasn't because the Falcons just eventually just came out of this with their superior team. Falcons won 38-20. It felt a lot closer than that for most of the game. This was 25-20 mid third quarter, and Carolina was spunky. They tied it at 7 apiece. Falcons did with 38 seconds left in the first quarter. But the Carolina just could never get the lead, even though they kept it close. They made it 22-17 at the half in favor of the Falcons. The Falcons just kept adding scores, kept adding field goals. In the third quarter, that just kept them right at arm's length, like one possession arm's length until they finally got a touchdown to make it 35-20, and then a field goal with only about 2 minutes left to make it a 18-point game and just ice it. And yeah, this was a game that was ugly for both teams. Panthers had more turnovers, but it didn't feel as dominating as the score would suggest. Andy Dalton did have 2 picks in this game, along with 2 touchdowns for 221 yards. Kirk Cousins had 229 yards and a touchdown. This wasn't a great display for the Falcons, but it was enough in a division game, which division games can always be weird, to get the win over a bad Panthers team to place themselves at the top of the division because of their win over the Bucks a couple weeks ago. So this is huge, and yeah, Falcons keep themselves at the top of the division and keep themselves barely ahead of the Bucks, which is for them very good. It could be this could be a huge game in terms of the division race as well as also maybe the playoffs in terms of NFC records. If the Falcons should somehow choke the division away. Bengals Giants on Sunday night was an ugly game. Um, Bengals took the lead 7-0. They had that lead for most of the game until the third quarter when the Giants did score a touchdown. Giants missed 2 field goals in this game. This was a game the Bengals did dominate for the most part. Defensively, they were pretty good. Um, this was a game the Bengals should have won. They did win. It felt ugly though, and it left me with a lot of questions about their offense against good teams. Whether this might be them overlooking their competition a bit in terms of offense. Think, oh, we could beat this team. Uh, Funny stat, I didn't know this until coming into the game. The Giants were the league leaders in sacks, surprisingly. And it showed. They had a lot of sacks of Joe Burrow. They kept him uncomfortable in the pocket. Giants actually had more offensive yards in this game than the Bengals. Also, something that was cost the Giants was going for fourth down a lot. They, I think, missed 2 fourth downs. One was in Giants territory, but the Bengals couldn't do anything with it because I think they fumbled like 2 plays later. This was a game the Bengals needed, and they won, but not very convincingly. The final touchdown was a garbage time touchdown where they were just taking over after the Giants. I think got a 3 and out or 4. Yeah, it was a turnover on downs, I believe. And yeah, they just sealed it with a Chase Brown touchdown run with about a minute 52 left. So yeah, and the Giants almost had a chance to come back and make an interesting game, but then they missed their second field goal, and that officially doomed them. Giants showed some positives in this game. They kept it a lot closer than it should have been, but at the same time, it showed how inept they are offensively. Um, and it showed the Bengals have a lot of weaknesses on both sides, mainly the offensive side of the ball, in terms of if they face a slightly good defense, they could be in some trouble. They are easily dragged down to some ugly games like they have with the Patriots and the Commanders. Um, yeah, this was a game the both teams wanted to win. Bengals needed it just to keep afloat in terms of playoff and division standings. Um, so yeah, this was a big game, but at the same time, like it was kind of boring in a sense as well. Another boring but and kind of bad game was Monday night, the the capper of all cappers for the week. It was ugly. It was ugly. The the Bills took a 20-10 lead in the second quarter, and then Aaron Rodgers pulls a vintage Aaron Rodgers moment out of his butt and throws a Hail Mary, 52-yard touchdown as time expires in the first half to Alan Lazard to make it 20-17 Bills at the half. And you're like, okay, well, this could be a game. Um, After that, both teams just scored a combined 6 points. Jets tied it in the third off of a 22-yard field goal. And then with 3:43 left in the fourth, the Bills saved themselves from utter disaster by kicking the game winner, 23-20. And the Bills could just do nothing with it after that. Jets, I mean, could do absolutely nothing with it after that. There were combined 23 total penalties in this game, made a very ugly game. Josh Allen had a great game, 19 for 25, 215 yards, 2 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers had himself an interesting game, 23-35, 294 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Um, Brees Hall had a pretty good game for not scoring a touchdown. He had 18 carries for 113 yards. Um, the leading rusher for the Bills was Ray Davis, 20 carries for 97 yards. Um, but also Frank Gore also had it was tabbed as the starter, but he didn't play a lot, I don't think. Um, Ray Davis was also the receiving leader for the Bills to show you how ugly this game was. Um, yeah, both teams have very similar yards total offense. The Bills had more first downs, and they won the turnover battle. They forcing the Jets, Rodgers to throw that one pick. So yeah, this was a game the Bills should have won. They did, but this was not a convincing win. Their defense is bad. The Jets defense did not look great. Um, no, I should say this: the Bills defense was good overall. They just gave up some fluky plays. Jets defense was awful. That's what I meant to say. The Jets defense was awful. They looked worse under this in this game than they did under Robert Saleh. This was their first game after having Robert Saleh fired, and it showed a lot of cracks in this team. And yeah, it just looked ugly after this game. And so we come into Tuesday morning thinking, oh, the Jets are this 2-4 team. They don't look great. They're 2-4. This looks like a team that is done for the most part in the playoff race. Well, never you fear, because guess what? We've got a new soap opera coming to town. It's called All Aaron's Children. This week on All Aaron's Children, after yet another loss to the Bills, Aaron cries out for a receiver. My weapons are not plentiful enough, is his plea. He wants his ex back. His former partner in crime, Devontae Adams. The Raiders do grow tired of his presence. They claim he is nothing but toxic. Devontae claims he doesn't get enough attention. It's a win-win. Daddy Rogers always gets what he wants anyways. The Raiders are so overjoyed by these overtures that they are willing to give Aaron a discount to get Devontae off their books. A conditional third? The Raiders say yes. What a splendid match that. Probably helps nothing? What in the blue blazes, Raiders? I thought you wanted a hefty king's ransom, not petties. Oh, that's right. Tom Telesco is your GM. Should have seen this coming. But also, Jets. I didn't know you were trying to become a dysfunctional mafia run by your QB. What will become of the offense? Are you both trying to become the 2010 Texans? Because that's right where you were both headed. You'll are becoming Twitter memes. That's how you know it's bad. Will the Jets start revving their engines, or will they stay grounded? Tune in next week to All Aaron's Children. Yeah, that's a new segment we're trying out here because the Jets are nothing but a soap opera at this point. Um, it's bad. This conditional third for the Devontae Adams trade, it could turn into a second depending on how well he performs as a Jet. And the Jets are going to take all 17 million of the, if most, if not all, of that 17 million dollar contract that Devontae has in Vegas. Yeah, it's bad. No one knows really how that's going to go. I'm I don't think it solves anything for the Jets, but you never know. I guess it could be huge in terms of maybe getting Garrett Wilson more reps, more time to get open, but who knows? As both Rogers and Abs both have huge egos at this point, so who knows? It's a very dysfunctional organization. As for the Raiders, like the Raiders just gave up their best weapon on offense, so now they're tanking big time. And yeah, that concludes the grid side part of this podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. We will be back on Thursday to preview the Week 7 action of the NFL as well as any EFL action that looks interesting. Please give us a follow and a like. We are on all platforms. Share with any of all who might be interested. We are on Spotify, Apple, Amazon. We do have TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram if you care to check those out as well. Until next time, thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.